Hello all, here's something different from my usual content of being the internet's most premium pure hater. A tutorial on texturing armour on miniatures. How exciting, I hear you cry. What will he come up with next? If you're wondering why this video is only showing up in portrait, it's because I suffer from a very, very serious disease known as the Big Stupid. I'm going to texture the lovely new sculpts of the Red Corsair's Huron Blackheart and the rest of G Unit. What is texturing? I hear you cry. It is the process of creating texture, you big dummy. But we can do this in a number of ways and different means, by reducing and applying. The first being reducing, which means to take away from the sculpt to add character. Most commonly in the form of battle damage, where using a scalpel, we can chip and scratches at places, or with a little drill, we can add bolter impacts. Placement is important, as we want to consider how and why the battle damage was earned. I'm going to use a few techniques here, and I have all of the products I'm going to use shown on screen. Also, along with links in the bottom, as I'm just so cool like that. I get all my stuff from Crusader Games, so check them out if you need anything. The Red Corsairs are a bunch of renegades, so getting shiny new equipment from the Minature was quite frankly not on the cards. Therefore, the time-honoured British tradition of looting is the first and only option. Much of their armour has large flat plates, perfect for texturing, after of course you remove the iconography of the person you stole, legally found it from, or they're using old heresy kit that they are absolutely desperate to preserve. In this tutorial we will have both iron-like texturing, chipping medium and a few crafty tricks. First, products. The first products I'm going to be using is VMS grit along with the adhesive, then plastic glue by Tamiya and plastic putty by Vallejo. A little bit of AK corrosion effect, and of course Martian Iron Earth by Games Workshop. On a piece of plasticard we will demonstrate the effects that we are looking for, rather than just diving in head first, or at least let me do it for you and cock it up that way. VMS are scale model products, offering quite niche solutions for air, land and sea enthusiasts. I quite frankly am furious towards the scale modelers for keeping this a secret from us. This product, VMS Grit, is used to replace the grippy surface on modern tanks such as the Striker, to basically stop people going arse over tit when it's wet. Available in different coarseness, the superfine variant offers a pretty good iron texture, and it adds a very nice bit of variance to the standard bland plates. It works with an adhesive that you brush onto the areas that you want textured. Then you come in with the airbrush and you blow this medium that contains a very fine powder. You want to use a larger needle for this. However, I am poor, so I used a small needle, but make sure to really clean it after. Once the medium dries, you'll notice that the dust sticks to the adhesive, so make sure proper ventilation and eye protection are used. Please don't sue me. You can even apply it with a brush and not an airbrush, but it gives a rougher, more splotchy effect. Remember, in weathering and texturing, all mistakes are just new techniques. Next, we have the old trick of Tamiya plastic cement and plastic putty. The plastic cement of all brands works by melting plastic, and once it dries, it fuses the two pieces together. By adding a small amount of Tamiya to the plastic putty, we can add this to any plastic surface, and it will melt and add to the texture of the plastic. Start gentle, with an instrument you don't mind knackering. I personally have a small band of glorious wounded brush soldiers, which I display like dreadnoughts until I call them into duty to handle the most dangerous and perilous missions. You can see the effect of different amounts and the application as they dry. If you're looking to use this technique on resin models, plastic cement won't work. In its place, maybe try some sculpting paste, or just the plastic putty by itself, but it won't be as secure as if it was made of plastic. Lastly, one of the most underrated paints you can possibly have, Martian Iron Earth by Games Workshop. It's a crackle paint. Any crackle paint will do, really. You see, I firmly believe in not following rules, so I will be using a basing product to texture a miniature. I'm such a maverick. Simply, you put it on and you leave. The larger the application, the larger the crackle. So you don't really know how it's going to come out exactly, but trust the process and just work with any mistakes you get. The best advice I ever got from a YouTube channel, I believe it was Sergio Calvo, is basically to fake it till you make it. No, that wasn't a mistake, but a definite artistic choice. Please believe me, anyone, please. Once all dry, we scheme. Here's the plan. I wanted to try the new True Metallic Red for the Red Corsairs, as something that's a bit different, as I don't want them to look like word bearers with their current paint scheme. However, I also want to use some chipping medium in the application. Does chipping medium work with true metallic paints? Well, I guess we're about to find out. We want to have it look like realistic battered armour, so here is a mini tutorial within a tutorial. Although it may seem daunting at first, chipping medium is quite simple to do. First, you paint a single layer of paint. Secondly, after waiting for the first to dry, you paint on the chipping medium. Then, after that's fully dried, you paint on the top layer. Then maybe take a stiff-haired brush or a toothpick, or what I use in the end, which is a little upside-down nail. You scratch away at the surface and it reveals the bottom coat. Colourforge, who make excellent primers, also have a thing going where YouTubers can make their own colour and they have their own special rattle can. Unfortunately, Colourforge is yet to recognise my raw sex appeal and has not given me my own content creator colour. You know what, start working on it, Colourforge. I'll take a slightly orangey brown undercoat that chipping is usually done in, then you can just send my cut of money to the wolf cave, thanks. In absence, we can use something like a Chimera brown oxide or MIG's iron oxide primer. This is actually the highly vaunted Style and Res fine primer that people rave about. They just rebranded it as MIG and didn't tell anyone, I guess. Fear not, I will inform the masses. Do not fear though, you can prime black or with any other coloured primer and then just add the colour you want after on the second layer. It really doesn't matter. You may notice that the chipping I did here is not particularly smooth. That's mainly, completely, my fault. I didn't let it dry long enough as I'm clinically stupid. But, as you will see, I learnt my lesson from my Red Corsairs and they come out very, very nicely. Once you're happy, seal it all in with varnish. With everything demonstrated and practiced, now I have a full plan. I can easily commence the process for real. Carefully apply the adhesive, spraying the powder in the medium, letting it dry and dusting off the excess powder in places I don't want. It's prime time. I do this with Colourforge Black with the intention of using Chimera Brown Oxide as my undercoat. However, there is a few other options depending on what kind of material you want to show through. Chimera, I think, is actually the only product I haven't bought from Crusader Games, so oops. You can get them as singles or sets, and I really would recommend them. Incredibly high pigment. We can really see the results of the grit. Once that's dry, on goes the chipping medium. I give it time to fully dry this time and not piss about like before, and then come in with the true metallic metal. Then I wait a full hour. This actually comes in a pack of 4, the base colour, a highlight colour, an airbrush version of the base colour, and a contrast light paint that's uniquely matched to the base colour. As I'm using the airbrush, I'll probably be using the airbrush version of the base paint, because why wouldn't I, you silly goose? Let that dry for the actual amount of time this time, which is about an hour, and you're not going to believe this, but it totally worked as intended when I followed the instructions. Who knew? I use a pinhead because it's the only thing I could be finding and I was too lazy to go get anything else, but you can use something like a toothpick or a stiff-haired brush, tapping away to remove the top layer of paint in selected areas. Now we are really getting the idea for the effect and the possibilities of a really gnarly grimdark texture, but also a more roughed and lived-in armour that actually looks heavy, which I don't really think the normal panels do as they're so smooth and nice. Then, being the lunatic I am, decide to see what would happen if I used a matte primer on the true metallic metal, and weirdly it kind of works. It gives a really interesting rich paint that reminds me of car paintworks that I used to see on Pimp My Ride. It fits quite well, so I do it to all the others. I intend to bring back some of the shine on the later highlights, so it will be a nice hybrid between finishes. If you want to see more, then let me know, as I quite enjoyed doing this. It's not going to affect my normal content, so don't you worry, you little cherubs. Anyway, bye.